Let's Solve the Universe, Episode 13, with guest Kevin Bulmer. Recorded February the 5th, 2019. That is still weird to say. Good morning, afternoon, evening, or wherever you happen to be in the space-time continuum, boys and girls. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Solve the Universe. Oh, it's good to be back behind the microphone. I've been traveling around these last couple weeks. Home is where the heart is, and it's also where the podcast guests happen to be. Today's guest in particular is a gentleman who I've had the pleasure of meeting on a number of occasions. He is a fascinating individual with a heart of gold and a mind full of wisdom. He is Kevin Bulmer, the No Schedule Man. He's also the new host of the one and only Mo Mondays London. When I heard this cat was going to be taking over Mo Mondays London, I thought, yes, perfect. This is the guy who will take this to the next generation and beyond. He is the host of not one but two podcasts, the Be Real, Do Better Small Business Podcast and Journeys with the No Schedule Man. He's a beautiful individual, and you can find out more about him at his website, kevinbulmer, BULMER.com. And if you want to find out more about him and all of his various social media outlets, go to the LSTU podcast site. All the show notes are there. All the links to our guests are there. And who knows, maybe one of the back episodes will catch your attention as well. But for the moment, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the one and only Kevin Bulmer. This is usually where I do the intro to the podcast, but I've got an amazingly epic guest on today, the one and only No Schedule Man, Kevin Bulmer. Kevin, how you doing?
Fabulous.
Awesome.
It's great to be here with you. Thank you for the invitation, Elias. It's pretty cool.
And I'm glad you didn't get too lost on your way here.
No, I was a little worried, like I told you, when the buildings went up by divisions of 10, and I thought I was 40 buildings away from you. Google Maps foiled again.
I know, Google Maps. You know what? Uber is the best because Uber labels that building over there, the building behind us, as 405, and then it labels this building 445. So Uber drivers all the time get screwed up in this area. It's
Nice.
fantastic.
Yeah, it sounds like a real carnival.
Oh, it can be. There's been a lot of times where I've called people, or people have called me on the phone, and it's like, no, turn right now, turn right now, turn right now.
Well, you helped me land my plane, so thank you for that.
That's always good.
I can see you. Turn this way now. Anyway, we're here together, and it's cool to have some time with you.
Yes, finally, because you've been a busy, busy man.
Well, aren't we all?
Well,
Unless we're women.
that's true, unless we're people. You've been a very busy person. How's that sound?
Yeah, I have been.
You've been a very busy person with one particular event which is near and dear to my heart in London, Ontario. I wonder what that could be. Mo Mondays London.
I don't know the cadence yet. See, now I waited and then I interrupted. See, I haven't figured out exactly what's mine to answer and what thought I'm supposed to let you finish. So let me observe and see if I can have it figured out by the end of the episode.
I'm sure we'll get something figured out.
Okay, I hope so.
You're the radio guy and I'm not. I'm just going to put that out there right now. You're the guy with the incredible, impressive background in radio, and you were like best broadcaster of the year in 96?
Yeah, that's a long time ago. Boy, when you put it that way, when you put a 90 in front of it, but thank you. Yeah.
Well, in 1996, I was 8 years old, so time's starting to feel like it's flying by a little bit.
Yeah, it'll do that. Get used to it.
Yeah. I was just saying to the girlfriend the other day, I'm like, it's February. Where'd January go? Like, it's beyond crazy. But anyway, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the fact that you are now the new host of Mo Mondays London.
Yeah.
So well done with that. What made you decide to pick up the mantle?
Of Mo Mondays?
Yeah.
A number of things. It was, well, I think as you know, I've participated in Mo Mondays all over Ontario as a speaker. And I have come to enjoy the friendships of people like you and previous hosts like Michael Doyle and Melissa Shank, Didn't really know Jen Garrett here in London very well, but certainly met her and was impressed with her energy and what she was doing. I have come to know Michelle Nire, who has been a guest on my podcast. As a matter of fact, Melissa and Michael have been as well. We'll have to get you on, and we'll... I'm just, now that I'm doing Mo Mondays, I don't do as many podcasts anymore, Elias. But so there were a lot of synergies there. And as I have been evolving my own business as a speaker, a coach, and consultant, what I'm finding, I've got, I'd say, two lanes that I run in, which to me are really the same lane, but people in general don't seem to think so. So fine, I'll call them two, which is mindset and marketing. And if you can bear with me a moment, this will come back to Mo Mondays, I think. And when I talk about mindset, I'm talking about really our default collection of habits, beliefs, and behaviors, and whether those are serving us well to propel us forward or to hold us in place or even pull us back in a lot of cases. And on the marketing front, I'm talking about basically effective messaging and content creation. Are you using your own voice, and are you communicating and building relationships of trust and emotional connection like an actual human being, or are you sounding like a marketer? Advertising. The common thread between each of these things, Elias, that I've discovered by going out and doing it and getting beat up in the world, trying to be an entrepreneur, is that essentially all I'm really asking and encouraging people to do is to be themselves. And what I'm finding is that either we don't really know what that is or what it means, or we do, but we're terrified to actually live and work and communicate that way. So on the marketing front, I think that's why you see so many small businesses, medium-sized, what I would call local businesses or entrepreneurs, that all communicate and copycat and parrot the same stuff because they think it's supposed to sound like marketing or advertising, but it doesn't really connect with the way human beings communicate. Similarly, in our personal lives, are we saying what we really want to say? Are we doing what we really, really want to do? Are we honoring those intuitions? Are we even noticing that they exist, or are we immediately quashing them because these field of dreams flashes that come to us and voices or ideas or inspirations don't always necessarily line up with what, air quotes, makes sense or how it's supposed to go? So do we really know who we really are? And how are we comparing and competing with others? How that relates to Mo Mondays is I've discovered that the hook line of real story, real people, real stories, real inspiration, that I feel really strongly, Elias, that because it's a part of both my personal and professional journey, that all these things that we, and I'm generalizing here, but we tend to feel like we can't or could never share with other people, because if we do, then it's going to be revealed how flawed we actually are and we'll push them away. That what actually happens is the reverse of that, is that it seems to draw us closer together. There's a relief on the other side of, okay, so you're human too? Yeah. You're not perfect either? And I've really seen Mo Mondays be a great incubator and proponent of that, and at its best, really creating valuable conversations. And I've just had too many people come to me after I've contributed as a speaker at other events that just want to talk. They want to share. They feel safe. And there have been a lot of conversations and friendships that have grown and continued from that. So when the opportunity came here in London, I thought a lot about it, and I thought about Michelle Nire's ultimate mission to be able to take some version of this model global, to bring people closer together and to help them get back in touch with themselves, let alone each other. And I thought, I want to be the guy to help make that happen. How exactly that's going to look, I'm not sure, but I believe in it. I did, full disclosure, Elias, I tried really hard to talk myself out of it. Michelle knows this. I tried really hard. And it was just one of those things where universal energy was just pouring ideas, inspirations into me and into my consciousness that it was like an avalanche that I couldn't stop. So I thought, okay, we'll do it. And now as you and I talk, we're really on the doorstep within a week of the first event.
Less than a week now.
That's right, yeah.
February 11th, as of this recording, it will be the first show.
Yeah.
So less than a week. It really feels like Mo Mondays aligns perfectly with who you are, though. Because looking at your website, looking at your background, a lot of your content revolves around this symbol of the phoenix, of what you could be, of the realizing your actual potential and trying to figure out who it is we are. You're absolutely right. That can be a very scary process. What is it that we actually want in life? Because sometimes, I'm sure you found this, is sometimes the correct answer is not the easy answer. That the correct answer to who you are and what you should be doing is not going to be an easy path to travel.
See, I don't know, Elias, if we're even really asking ourselves the question. I never did.
Right.
Is it who we really are, which sounds like kind of a hairy-fairy existential question. I understand that. Or what it is that we really want. Or is it that we're just doing what we think we're supposed to do, which was the case for me. I'm older than you are, so I don't know whether there are a lot of similarities in terms of the outlook of when you go from kid to teenager to into the workforce and you put life together a certain way. But over and over and over and over and over and over again, I keep running into people that have such a similar story to tell of where they're following what they really thought was the map, the script, the way to do it, only to to end up kind of in a pile of rubble or with some major shift in life, whether that's career related or marriage or relationship or health, or as in my case, all of the above all at once. And I think that presents us with an opportunity to either start asking ourselves those questions. How did I get here? Where am I now? Where is it that I wish to go? Who do I really wish to be? And how am I going to have to live and work and choose differently in order to get somewhere other than where I already am? And that's where the hard work comes in. And it's uncomfortable. And when you spend a lot of time thinking in a certain way and behaving a certain way and believing a certain way, and this is where I talk about mindset being a collection of default habits, beliefs, and behaviors. Most of us don't even know what we're saying to ourselves and the effect on that, let alone the effect on what we're saying and doing and thinking about and to and with other people. So I find this really fascinating, Elias, because I've seen how much of a difference it has made and continues to make in my life. And to your point, what a challenge it is. And I see the appetite, the need for people to have somebody that can share genuinely and invite conversation. I'll go on the record as I am weary and sick and tired of the expert and specialty statement nonsense. Choose your niche, go an inch wide and a mile deep, be a specialist. Okay, so you want me to be a narrow-minded person who knows about one thing and isn't well-rounded or doesn't have multiple interests.
I have a theory about that. I have a hypothesis about why there's a lot of speakers, a lot of coaches, why that seems to be the way that the message that they present.
I'd like to hear it.
I think they're afraid of competition.
I think that's part of it, and I think it's also another illusion of the map.
Yeah, that too.
If I do it this way, then I'll succeed. And in the short term, you probably can. But when you start with the result, and then I'm getting off on a tangent here.
But it ties into what Mo Mondays is about, though. It's not about that, stand up on stage and here's the one path, here's the one way. You listen to all these different talks, and there's a million different paths. Before I went to Mo Mondays, and I was struggling in 2014, 2015, trying to figure out what the hell to do now, I just sat there and thought, Christ, am I the only person who's struggling to figure this crap out? And then go to Mo Mondays, and it's like, oh, I'm not alone. There's other people who are struggling with this.
Yeah, and it's not like it's a support group where everybody sits down and has a good cry. It's about, no, I see. I'll give you an example. One of the people that is going to be at the first event coming up on February 11th, or that was back on February 11th, depending on when you're listening to this, is a guy named Martin Reed. Now, Martin's from Mississauga, which is just outside Toronto. And he's about my age. I think he's in his mid-40s. But if you see Martin, he looks like a chiseled Greek god, like indestructible. Like he's a fitness Pilates instructor. Just he puts these videos out on Instagram and on his social media that I see him doing these exercises and think, holy cow. So somebody might look at him from the outside and think, well, that's a guy that's got everything and got it all put together. And he does now, to a certain extent. I'm sure that there are things that he's working on, as we all are. But when he tells his story about his own journey of what he thought he was supposed to do and how he was viewed with that outward appearance, but how inwardly everything was broken and fallen apart, there is a holy cow energy in the audience that when you see somebody like that, who is, it's the movie set thing. Well, everything appears to be fine, but we think we know. We keep making all these assumptions about ourselves and each other, but we don't know. And why do we assume other people have all their stuff together where we don't think we do?
Yeah.
Or we look at other people and assume that maybe they're flawed. The reality is that if you're human, you're dealing with something. You just are. Or you have, or you're going to. It's just part of the experience. And we seem to have hung this idea of, one of my favorite buzzwords, vulnerability. I get this all the time, Elias, when I go out and do talks. Oh, Kevin, you're so vulnerable. As if it's this badge of tremendous courage. And I think because of the culture and climate that we've been raised in, it does take courage to do that. But I'd like to have a hand in dispelling that, because I feel like it shouldn't be an act of tremendous courage to just tell the truth about how you're feeling. And to me, that's all vulnerability is. I'm just telling you how I feel. I'm just keeping it real. I'm just being real with you. And if I can't share what's true about how I feel, then I don't know where we really are with things. If I don't feel safe enough around the people, especially those that I love most. And here, I'm in the card-carrying divorced guy club. Elias, it never in a million years occurred to me when I was married that I'd ever be in that pile. Ever. But I didn't know then what I know about myself now, and I don't know if I would have even thought or become open to learning it if things hadn't crumbled that way. I guess we're all different in that respect, but I think it still comes down to that idea of just being genuine and authentic. I don't know what's right for you. This is why the instruction and, I get called motivational speaker. I don't like that term. I don't like the idea of shouting at somebody to try to, beast mode and grind endlessly and never sleep, and because that's external as opposed to something inspiring when it lights up inside you, there's resonance and it pulls you forward. Well, I can't tell you what that is for you, but whether you are allowing yourself to know that you know doesn't change the fact that you still know.
Right.
It's in there somewhere. I might be able to help you see it and encourage you to bring it out, but I feel that for me to sit here and tell you what's the right way for you to live or what you should do or what you should want is nonsense.
Absolutely. It's all trial and error too. There's so much trial and error in our life. I mean, I'm always working on ways to become a better person, whether that's fitness, whether that's my nutrition, everything. It's always changing. We are a species that is just constantly evolving. And I think if we stick to that map format, we deny ourselves that opportunity to change, don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing that I'm just thinking, listening to you, is that word change.
Well,
people react to it as if you're yelling shark at the beach. And the unfortunate news, if you feel that way, is that change is the one thing that I can absolutely guarantee that's going on with everything, every single nano moment of every day. everything's changing.
Yeah.
It just is. And guess how much control we have over that?
Yeah. Not a whole lot.
Zero. And we brace against it and we tense against it. And we don't like to talk about death, and we don't like to talk about relationships changing and jobs changing and environment changing. And it's just a fundamental fact of life that we live so much of our days in intense resistance against. You can't win that fight.
No, never.
You lay your guns down. Like, use your energy on something more productive. How about embracing the idea of change as bringing something even better?
Sure.
But we just naturally, I'm generalizing again, just fear it. Well, if it's going to be change, it has to be bad. Why? Why can't it be better?
Well, it's the only way we're going to evolve our species, too. I mean, we have to overcome generations of that fear of change being the thing that kept us alive. Think about the fact that you back in the days when we were part of the food chain. I mean, consider the fact that we're no longer part of the food chain. That's kind of cool.
It depends on where you are in the moment, but
depends. Yeah,
I see what you're getting.
I wouldn't jump into the Shark Tank at the Toronto Zoo, but for the most part, we're out of the food chain. But those instincts served us so well for so long. But now we're at a point where those are obsolete. And we have an opportunity by consciously acknowledging that change is inevitable and that change is a good thing, and that we need to control how we react to that change rather than trying to control the change itself. Look how successful trying to control and rail against change has done for the music industry, which is just bleeding money left, right, and center. And they're failing. And it's all because they're trying to rail against change. All these failing industries that are refusing to evolve and just getting their lunch eaten by these little upstart companies and by independent labels.
There are a million stories like that, and there are going to be a million more in our lifetime.
Like, look at the most popular radio program right now. The one that I would consider radio program is Joe Rogan's podcast. And it's just him and a producer, and that's it. He didn't have to go to a syndicated format like on one of the satellite radio or try to get syndicated on terrestrial radio. Him and a friend just made that podcast, and now it's the most popular audio interview program on the planet. Yeah. That's crazy to consider. And that has all taken place within my own lifetime.
Yeah, just within the last little while, really. And it amazes me how many refuse to or don't want to see it when the very fate of their existence hangs in the balance.
Yeah.
And I was invited to do an interview at a local TV outlet recently, Elias. And I'm in my mid-40s, so some of my old instincts kicked in to send out to my social media channels, hey, I'm going to be on this station at this time if you want to watch. And then I kind of stopped myself and I thought, with the amount of videos that I've posted and that they've seen of me, am I saying, hey, I know you've seen all sorts of video of me, but just in case you might like to see a little bit more video of me, I'll be at this local TV station. And I thought about that, and I don't mean any disrespect to anyone, but just thought about how much it's changed in that regard. When I was younger, you wanted to get your name in the paper.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a 16 and a 12-year-old son. Elias, they don't even know what cable is. It won't even occur to them to have a television. Why would they?
That's true.
Or like a newspaper? So you mean you used to have somebody with a sack full of paper that would leave, the air quotes, the news of the day on your front step every morning, and you would read it with, that's what you used to do? And I mean, that industry was just, it wasn't all that long ago that newspaper, that was the authority.
Yeah.
Or it was the perceived authority. And now, wow,
Now, what's a
Man,
newspaper?
And again, talk about not embracing change. We could be here for the whole rest of the episode citing industries like that. But again, I think it's just about embracing the fundamental fact of impermanence of anything. And then not live in fear of that, but to be excited about it.
Yeah.
Maybe I can deliberately create something that's even better. I'm going to continue to evolve and grow and expand and learn. And that's cool, as opposed to this idea of there are these ABCs that we're supposed to learn and cover and these boxes that we're supposed to check off. And then once we do, we're good. And we live a life, and that's just how it is. It's like there's a period at the end of the sentence or a top to a certain mountain. Well, if you're growing, then there's no top. There's no period. You're just either growing or you're not.
Yeah.
If you want the period at the end of the sentence, you're trying to stay static while the rest of the world and every single living thing and piece of matter in the universe is changing around you. Whether you want to brace against it and try to convince yourself that it isn't or not, it is. So you're choosing to resist the fundamental laws of the universe and existence. Now we're really getting off into space here, aren't we?
I love it. This is this is perfect.
But I mean, I remember when my life was in shambles, Elias, I signed the movie The Secret out of the library. Do you know which one I mean? It was, and I remember thinking, I was actually embarrassed that I thought, it's come to this, I'm going to watch The Secret.
The Secret. I don't think I
law
remember
of
that.
The original law of attraction thing with all the gurus.
Right.
And I remember taking that DVD out of the library, almost like the same feeling, like, well, people now wouldn't know what it means to buy a dirty magazine, but I did when I was a kid, or when you would go to try to buy condoms at the drugstore, and you'd be all, well, maybe people aren't embarrassed about that anymore, but I sure was when my day came for that. But anyway, I was kind of embarrassed. I thought, it's come to this. I'm going to watch this. And I put it on, and I remember there was a part by Bob Proctor, who's one of the well-known personal development guys and talks about paradigms. In fact, Bob's from not too far from here, from Toronto. And he talked about that if you took your hand and you looked at it and it looks like a solid thing, but that if you put it under a powerful enough microscope, that what you would be able to see is that it's actually millions and millions of individual cells at a very high speed of vibration. And there was just something about that just made sense to me. This was in the context about how things can change, health, mindset, results, whatever it might be, that everything is energy as opposed to solid matter. And Bob started talking about how we think that things are solid, static, that they don't change. This building that we're sitting in, it's not changing. Well, it is. Mm-hmm. We can't see it. But if we just leave it sit and do nothing to it and come back and have a look at it 20, 30, 50, 100 years from now, we'll see that it's changed.
Big time.
We just can't see it right now. And there was something that went tilt in my consciousness when I saw that made me think, well, maybe you can change. Maybe you can heal. Maybe we have more power to shape our experience in our bodies than we think we do. And since that time, and that, what is it now? We're talking in 2019, so that would have been about 7 or 8 years ago. All evidence has suggested that that's exactly true. Everything in my life has completely changed for the better, Elias. Some of it, of the fundamental building blocks, I'm still working at getting them to where I would like them to be and ultimately go. But still, health, relationships, just overall sense of well-being, career, everything completely 180, completely transformed. So I don't want to hear that it's not possible, because I know that it is. And the more that I continue to go down that path, the more I continue to enjoy the friendships of people like you who are also out there kind of exploring, challenging, asking the questions, wondering what if, collaborating with other seekers, and challenging these tired, old, lazy rules of convention and of how to live, and empowering themselves to maybe listen to themselves and know that that's not only okay, but it's probably very necessary in order to really be happy and content and fulfilled in a higher percentage of our day-to-day experience.
I love it. I mean, the fundamental shift I experienced, because I had one very similar to yours. I was reading the book, Scott Adams' book, How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big. Have you read that one?
No, I haven't.
He's the author of the Dilbert comic strip.
Yep. I was going to say I know the name, but I haven't read the book.
Yeah, it's a fantastic book. And in it, he describes this idea of goals versus systems. And when I heard about that, I thought, that's a fascinating idea. Because he talks about goals as something that you achieve, and then you have to replace it with something else. And you're just on this constant treadmill of feeling bad about, you accomplish a goal, now what? You accomplish a goal, now what? You accomplish a goal, now what? Versus a system where it's something, he defines it as something you work at every single day. That even if you're not aware that it's working that day, over the long term, it moves you in a positive direction in life, with the intent of making you feel more fulfilled as a human being. And when I started to shift my thinking from that kind of the cliche, be happy, to being fulfilled as a human being, the happiness kind of came as a side effect. It was like, oh, hold on a second. I feel fulfilled as a human being. This is better than any other target I've aimed myself at. This is a better metric of my own self-worth and my own happiness than anything else ever was. It's like, all you have to do, like, if you want to, the biggest cure for money solves all problems, or money buys happiness, is to make a lot of money. And I'm sure you've learned, like I have, that you can make a lot of money and be unbelievably miserable with it. And then also go to having no money at all and be having a grand time. Like, isn't it amazing how that happens? How we just get set on these paths of, there is just one way and you have to follow it. I feel like sometimes there's this fear of, you have to make this path work, otherwise you're a failure as a human being. Have you ever thought that some people get led astray by that? Or something similar?
Yeah, I think that speaks back to what we were discussing a short while ago, of the assumptions that we make about ourselves and each other. We see somebody that's got all the money in the world and all the toys and all the tricks, and just assume that they've got it all together. And maybe we devalue ourselves in comparison to them, but we don't know what's going on, in their lives, with their health, with their relationships. And I'm not trying to suggest that there should be anything that's not fulfilling, but on a similar vein, the opposite of that is maybe you see someone that appears to not have very much at all. And for many of us, our default reaction might be to feel sorry for them or to feel pity. But we don't know that might be the most fulfilled, charged up person in the world, who is so completely grateful for their experience and where they are, and that they have exactly what they want.
And they exist.
And in either case, we're assuming, we guess, but we don't know unless we invite that conversation. And then we are being, air quotes again, vulnerable with each other by actually expressing how we really feel. If we feel safe enough within ourselves and with each other to do that and to not feel judged, well, maybe you want and have all these toys and tricks that don't hold a lot of value for me. That doesn't make me right and you wrong, or vice versa. It makes us have a different set of values and to want other things.
Right.
But if we chase those things just because we think that we're supposed to, without knowing whether there's really resonance there with a fulfilled life and a fulfilled experience for us, well then, there's potentially trouble there. For me, I mean, I thought it was, it was status, job, security, safety, money. And then even after things fell apart, I still thought, okay, well, now I'm doing better with health and relationships and now I need the money. Once I have the money, everything will be smooth. And I started investing in different programs and learning about these kinds of things, only to discover that it wasn't really about money at all. Or that I could go, and as you had noted, I've made money. I've had nice fancy titles. I've had good jobs, but been miserable. And I thought, well, money I can make.
Mm-hmm.
How do I want to make it? When I get to the end and I look back, what am I going to regret if I don't at least try or say or not say? I don't want to be one of those people who ends up as the subject of one of those touching social media videos that people pass around of, here are all the regrets of the dying people in the hospital on their deathbed. Isn't this sweet? Oh, this touched my heart. On and on and on. And then nobody friggin' ever does anything about it except pass the video around.
And it's the most painful thing in the world to watch.
Well, so the reality is, if you can cast your mind and your spirit forward to being in that position, because if you're lucky enough to stay healthy and live a good life, you're going to be in that spot.
Yeah.
Oh, we can't talk about that. Well, you just are, whether you consider that bad news or not. But the power of what you have in front of you now is you can start to choose right now today to try and do something about what that future person might regret.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be something as simple as picking up the phone and talking into it. Or maybe a better example is going to see somebody, or maybe even simpler than that, saying something that you know needs to be said, that you're afraid of, but you know is really going to haunt you if there comes a point where you can't anymore because the other person's not around to say, whatever it is. It might be as simple as that. It might be a trip, an activity, a line of work, any of these kinds of things. Again, I don't know what it is for you. I have a hard enough time trying to figure it out for me. And what I'm finding is it's a constant process, to your point of the systems versus goals, of there's a momentum that happens when you're in a creative state and you're working on something that resonates with you, whether it's creating a podcast or making a quilt or knitting or gardening or playing the guitar or exercising or whatever it might be. One thing leads to the next thing, leads to the next thing, leads to the next thing, and it's just this magnetic, electric, creative momentum that happens over time, that once you start to realize that you're being carried along on that river, that's when life really is cool. More of your attention is being paid to, whoa, I'm on the river. It's pretty cool. And you're able to notice things more that you like and you appreciate, and you have these little moments. And the other stuff that's there, that happens, that goes on, just fades a little bit further from the front edge of your awareness. And it's a pretty neat way to go, but I can tell you, Elias, that the version of Kevin that lived up to about 36 or 37, if he could meet me, he would think I'm a complete kook. Wouldn't have any time for me at all. And that's okay, because I think that's just part of the process for each of us.
That's part of the evolution.
Yeah.
That's part of the rising like a phoenix, isn't it? I can see why it has so much symbolism in your life too. That, rise up from the ashes, come back from the place that you once were. And in a way, that symbolism acknowledges that you're not going to be that person who you once were, which can sometimes be a scary thing, especially for those around you who might not be ready to move with you or change with you. Did you find that the people that you associated with, did they change a lot once you went through your transformations?
Did the other people change?
Or did you find that there were certain people that didn't come with you on the next leg of your journey?
I don't pardon me, I don't think other people changed any more than they are through the natural process of their own growth and evolution. Some of the circle of people that I interact with, a lot of them on a day-to-day basis, that has changed. And part of that has been very deliberate. And part of that has been the realizing the manifestation of what they say is true about that once you start living and working more in alignment with yourself and who you really are and what lights you up, people will be put across your path as if by magic. This is straight out of the Power of Myth, the wizard at the side of the road and the people that are just there to give you a bit of support, a piece of wisdom, a boost, a hand up, or whatever it is. And it's true. It's true. And when you come across these people and you feel that energetic, that magnetic resonance, that you know that you both share a similar set of values in that you are each trying to find yourself and are open to encouraging and assisting and collaborating with the others so that they can do that for themselves as well. It's really, really cool. At first it was uncomfortable, Elias, because I was working on a day-to-day basis with people that I really loved and still love, but realized I want more out of my life than this. I want more for myself than what I can experience if I stay where I am. And I struggled with that for a little while because I didn't want that to be a statement on my friends and the people that were closest to me that I saw day to day, whom I loved and still love, as I mentioned. But ultimately it came down to they've got to do what's right for them and I've got to do what's right for me. And one of the fundamental things of the rise like a phoenix, race like a turtle is the idea of forgiveness. And so to forgive basically means to let go of completely. So when you talk about going through the ashes, part of it is, rising back up, but part of it is letting go of the things that no longer serve us. Whether they be relationships or old thoughts or old habits or old identities or old roles or you name it. Past traumas. Do we just continue to slug through life with the burden of those things on our back because we cannot let them go? And I often hear myself saying, particularly when I do that talk, that forgiveness is not about being right. It's about being free. About being free. When you take that stuff, whatever it is that it represents in your life, and you let it go. You can't rise from the ashes and find your wings again unless you let go of them. Mm-hmm. And that sounds really simple. But I remember when I was going through my divorce, I was married almost 12 years, and this is an almost unfair summary of the story, but my wife at the time got involved in another relationship. I tried to keep things together. It didn't work out. She ended up getting remarried with the guy that she got together with at that time. Fast forward now, we're terrific, really genuinely close friends, all of us. It's a wonderful situation. But back then, it was the worst pain ever. And I felt like a failure, and I was embarrassed, and I was devastated, and I thought I'd had my chance at life, had blown it, and I was angry at her, and I was angry at him, and I was angry at myself. And I'll hear myself saying to people, now that you fast forward, and that the three of us are all such genuinely close buddies and co-parents of my kids, that it freaks people out sometimes, which is a bit of a sad commentary on our culture if you think about it. and that they had another child of their own who's now 5. And he and I are such good buddies that he comes over to my house and stays for sleepovers and asks me to take him to movies. And he wants to hang out. Not all the time, but every few months or so. That happened because I had to forgive myself, her, him. I had to let go of that. And we live in this culture that seems to look at the idea of forgiveness as weakness. And so not to say that I'm doing any better or worse than anyone else, but to just offer that situation of an example of just being happy, living with ease, having good energy and vibration around individuals where there was so much tension and hurt feelings and sadness. I'll challenge people and say, well, so am I weak? Because I had to forgive. So did they. Does that make me weak? Because if it does, I'll take it. And I think what I found, my feeling is that forgiveness, it's like a superpower that's disguised as weakness, but it requires and exhibits the most strength of anything that you'll ever do. And I've met people and I've interviewed them on my podcast, and I have observed like superhuman, almost godlike abilities to forgive and let stuff go. I've been through jack shit compared to what some people have lived through. Like just horrific situations that nobody should ever have to deal with. But I know some of these people, and you know some of them too, that have been able to focus on letting that go so that they can live their lives from a place of love and good feeling. And you can't have that if you hold on to the poison. You can't carry it with you and not have poison. It just doesn't work. And then we want to make it more difficult than that. But no, it's a choice.
Well, think about what forgiveness really is. It's the ultimate form of change. I mean, to maintain that steady state of that person hurt me, they are the enemy. That's too easy. That's built into our instincts. But to sit back and say, no, I'm going to forgive. I'm going to let go of this. And certainly I imagine it was not an easy process to figure out, considering the society that we live in sometimes. But that idea of forgiveness, to me, as you were talking about it just now, struck me as the ultimate form of change. The ultimate form of change.
It's a tricky one.
It is.
If you think about and this is where we get back to what are tuning into ourselves. And I'm always working on something that I can't quite figure out why I'm holding myself back. And I'll realize that there's something there that needs to be acknowledged and forgiven and let go. And sometimes I'll know that it's there and blocking me up, but not know what it is. Most recently, it's just been this feeling of worthiness. And I'm looking for the right vocabulary to express the thought, but just not wanting to appear as if I think I'm smarter than anybody else, or asking for people's time and attention, and who are you to suggest that you should be able to say, do, think X, Y, Z, when ultimately anybody else's reaction is really not up to me. But I struggle with that. I've had an aha just even very recently about how much energy I burn trying to prove myself and dance around the topic and show that no, I'm good, I add value, I'm helpful, and if I can show that enough, then maybe you'll come to me. And we'll do some business, as opposed to just getting to the point and asking for what I want.
Right.
What if I ruffle feathers? Well, is that what you're trying to do, Kevin? No. Well, then it's not really up to you. It might not be the best example, but it's a current example of something that I know I'm struggling with right now while we're sitting here talking to each other. Am I good enough? Do I really deserve to ask for what I think I'd like to have? And I'm offering that only because you get me going on some of these subjects like this. And then when we talk with the benefit of hindsight on some of these things that we've worked on for several years, and you got the radio voice and you talk for a living and you can fool people into making it sound like you really know what you're doing or you're talking about. But if you're growing and you're moving forward, there's always something that you're struggling with.
Always.
And that's a key thing, I think, Elias, that many of us forget when we're evaluating ourselves and we're judging ourselves in our own journeys. He's got it figured out. She's got it figured. If I could only be like that, and this gets, right back to where we've been the whole thing, is that we're all, whether we know it or not, trying to figure out the next step and hoping that we can be joyful and content and happy inside our own skin as many of those steps as we can.
Whenever I see those Instagram or Facebook or any of those advertisements where you see somebody standing in front of a giant mansion and driving the car and saying, here's my 6 steps to living well, I always think to myself, now, you can rent that car for $200 a day. You can pull up in front of that place and record for 30 seconds and probably not even pay the property owner. And you can do this all with an iPhone. Does this person really have this all together, or how much of this is completely staged?
I remember I was at a job about 6 months, the first one that I had after life kind of fell apart. I didn't like the job. It was basically an inside sales job. That sounds like a bank heist movie. It was a job like where you have a headset on you and you're just dialing people all day long.
I know those.
Okay. And the kinds of jobs that, change alert, are not going to exist before very long. Anyway, artificial intelligence, look it up. And choose a different career path. So on the phone all day long, strapped to this headset, and it was just like volunteering yourself into a firing squad emotionally. Yes. Is what it felt like. And what the managers would do, bless their hearts, I loved the place, I hated the job. They would say, well, what you do is go get a photo of a sports car.
Oh, no.
Or a mansion or something like that. And I'm telling you the truth. And stick it on the corner of your computer monitor. And that's going to motivate you to push through.
I remember this.
And I took the advice, I did it, and it actually made me feel worse. And it wasn't until years after the fact that I finally discovered that I didn't value those things. You couldn't motivate me that way. I'm not saying that other people shouldn't, and this isn't a live in a tiny house in a hut on the hill and, just eat grass rant. No, I've got lots of stuff that I want, but I had to figure out that the things that I want are more experiential. And freedom is that if I had a bunch of money now, I'm going to keep driving my little fuel-efficient car, but I would hire landscapers and cleaners in a heartbeat, or any of the things that would free up my time. I would hire people to help me do the things that I do in my day-to-day work that I'm doing, but that I don't have to be the one to do, editing and web work and all that other, so that I can free myself up to be with the people that I love and want to be with as much as I can, and to enjoy as much of my time doing what I want to do as I can. Yeah, if that involves a Miami Vice cigarette boat at some point, or something else, well, fine. But right now, what I want would sum up in the phrase creative and lifestyle freedom. I want to get as much of my creative stuff expressed and out of me before I go into the ground or the oven, whichever one it is, as I possibly can. And I want to have enough freedom that I can just enjoy as many moments as I possibly can with my boys, with my sweetheart, with my mother, with my dad while they're still around, with my family, with people like you, sharing ideas with stuff like this. But I mean, somebody gave me the keys to like a Lamborghini or a Porsche or something. I mean, if that's what gets your rocks off, God bless you. What the hell am I going to do with it in London, Ontario? And this is what I see as the default because I do online marketing and I've got, I use ClickFunnels and Aweber and some of these softwares and stuff like that. I get retargeted with all this nonsense of give me 45 seconds and I'm going to show you how I made $2 million in the last month by selling this owl thing on my online store. Or the guy in the, with all of the sports cars behind them or the mansions. And I just think, I could make the money. But for me, it's what are you making the money doing?
Yeah.
And does that feed your sense of fulfillment and purpose? And there are going to be some people that go, holy cow, what a kook. Like, just go be a lawyer, go be a doctor, go be a stockbroker, go be a real estate investor. And I've learned about myself. I can't be happy if I'm not doing something through the course of the day that I feel that matters.
Mm.
And what that is for anybody else is up to them. Could be anything. Could be any of the things I've mentioned. Could be a million other things besides. But for us to think that, well, I'm going to, like I said, I got a 16-year-old kid and he's getting bombarded with, what are you going to do with your life? I'm like, he's 16!
Yeah, leave him alone.
He's 16. Figure out who you are. You're going to do a whole bunch of different things over the course of your life. Are you kidding me? It's 2019 and we're still on this pick your courses and choose your path and that's what you're going to do. It's just, it makes my head spin, Elias. Like, it's just, we're not working in factories anymore.
Oh, it's so nice to feel.
That's not where we're going.
It's so nice to hear somebody that I consider to be an adult say that. Thank you.
That's scary. If I'm an adult, I don't know who's at the wheel.
Oh, can you go to some guidance counselors and just take this? I'm going to give you a snippet of what you just said in the last 30 seconds, and I want you to play that. I want that to be played to guidance counselors all over Ontario.
You're not paying attention.
Yeah.
If that's still the paradigm, if you can line up your interests and your values and your unique capabilities with certain skills, like you could, like my son had said that he was interested in law all of a sudden. Well, then that precipitated a conversation of all of the dozens and dozens of things that you could take that skill set and apply it to. Or engineering, or science, or computer programming, or whatever. But I'm gonna be I don't know. I'm trying to think of something that
just
that's a job that I'm going to be president one day.
Yeah, just that single path of this is the one way to do it. And you're absolutely right. It's every single skill that you acquire. You start putting together these different skill sets, and suddenly you've got something really special. Like if your son becomes interested in law and pairs that up with computer science, whoa.
No kidding.
Not a lot of lawyers that can speak the computer science language.
Yep.
And then say even pair up law with computer science and then maybe a background in audio broadcast. Whoa, you've suddenly got a lawyer who knows how to speak to computer programmers and has an awesome voice to boot. Like, these are just powerful we're not yet thinking in terms of those skill combinations in the workforce. We're getting closer, but I think we've got more work to do.
Yep, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Kevin, where can people find you on the internets?
On the Google machine?
On the Google machine. Because you've got 2 podcasts, yeah?
I do. I often say to people, if you have my name and a connection to the internet, I'm frighteningly easy to find. Frightening for me. Maybe. It's just kevinbulmer.com, Bulmer. If it's easier to remember, noscheduleman.com. That'll take you to the same spot. And that's the hub for everything I do. All my socials are listed there. The podcast, Journeys with the No Schedule Man, and Be Real, Do Better, the small business marketing show, is there. There's information about Mo Mondays on there, and speaking and coaching and all things Kevin, gateway to all the video blogs and all of that kind of stuff.
It's the gateway drug. Or something like that.
For anybody that thinks that there might be something to enjoy there, but that's the place to go, and thanks for asking.
And tickets for Mo Mondays can be found at momondays.com/London.
I see that you remember the routine.
Oh, yes.
You're quite correct. Yeah.
You know, I hosted it for a little while, so I do remember some of those promo things.
Yeah, do you know what? Just as we round third, we're on to something special, Elias. I don't mind calling the shot. I have a slightly different vision of where it has been and where it can go.
Yep.
And you can feel it energetically. And I think that there are going to be some people that will show up that night that are going to have their eyes opened. And I'm really excited about where it can go in the future. And I'm in no hurry. But I've already had people reaching out to me from other parts of the world. If this sounds really, I wish I was there. Could we do one here someday? And I'm like, hold the thought, because that's part of the plan.
That's a good sign. I have to admit, as soon as I saw that you were going to be the host of Mo Mondays London, I immediately went, yes, this is perfect.
That's nice.
This is the guy. I wasn't the right person to help bring it back. You are.
Yeah, what makes you think that?
Maybe a conversation for another time. I think that's because it's a bit of a long, convoluted story. The Cliffs Notes version is honestly that it, for me, when I was doing it, I could feel the quality slipping, and I'm not somebody who does things in a half-assed manner. And I wanted to put on a good show for people because I thought these are people that are taking time out of their busy lives and sharing it with us on a Monday night, sometimes in very inclement weather. Some of those shows in January, February were brutal weather. But I really wanted to make sure that they could walk away feeling fulfilled, and I wasn't sure that I was the right person at that time to do that. I'll fully admit that. And there's lots of reasons why that we can explore in another podcast, but I'm just thankful that you've taken up the Mo Mondays banner. And I cannot wait to see the show on Monday, February the 11th, momondays.com/London for tickets. You know you want to be there. And where is it being held?
The London Music Club. And I say club because people get that confused with the London Music Hall, which is a different venue, a wonderful venue run by terrific people. But we are at the London Music Club, 470 Colburn Street, just north of Queen's Avenue in London. Terrific spot.
Excellent. The London Music Club.
We're clubbing it.
Excellent. Kevin, it has been an absolute honor to have you in here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elias. It's been a lot of fun. I really appreciate it.
We got to do this again sometime.
Anytime.
Awesome. And we will see you or talk with you next time, dear listener, on Let's Solve the Universe. Thank you for listening to Let's Solve the Universe. This podcast can be heard every Saturday at lstupodcast.com. For more information about Let's Solve the Universe, head over to our Facebook page, Let's Solve the Universe Podcast, or check out the Let's Solve the Universe website because you know you want to. Complete show notes and information about all our guests can be found there. And I thank you, dear listener, for sharing your time with us. And we'll talk to you next Saturday.